You're listening to a New York Islanders episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the team's latest goings-on as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Islanders fans, welcome to another New York Islanders episode of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk. And not that long ago, all was right in Islanders land. They were the best team in hockey. They were winning every game. They looked like a real Stanley Cup threat. It was great. Then, on March 11th, something happened that really changed the trajectory of this season. Anders Lee tore his ACL, obviously meaning that he's out for the rest of the year. It seems like that was a while ago, but the last Islanders show I did was March 8th, so it was before the Lee injury. I really haven't had a chance to talk about it. It's been killing him recently. Kiefer Bellows, when he was first on that first line, really looked impressive. He had 3 goals in his first 2 games. I was there for him against the Devils. Then he petered off. It's been a struggle finding someone to replace Lee on that third line. It hasn't been Ross Johnston. It hasn't been Leo Komarov. It hasn't been Michael DeCaul. The Islanders' left wing depth is now very shaky. You've got really just Beauvillier and Martin. That's it. I got news for you. Neither one of those guys strike much fear into me. Martin strikes fear into me as a guy who I wouldn't want to get a body check from, but as a point getter, I'm not scared of him. And you know what? Beauvillier has had a disappointing season. It's something that we really haven't talked about. Anthony Beauvillier only has 11 points in 26 games. But even more than that, you lose his leadership. Some people don't read a lot into the captain. Oh, it really doesn't mean anything. It's just a letter on the jersey. No, in hockey it means something. You are the guy that the young guns look to and say, okay, what do we do now? You are the leader of the team. There's a lot of responsibility with that seat. The Islanders don't have that right now. And it's showing. Since the Lee injury, they really haven't looked as impressive as they did before the injury. They're 5-3 in their last 8. 3 of those wins came in overtime. 1 of them came in a shootout. And they've had some tough losses in there. On the 18th, my birthday, the first game at the Coliseum where the general public could buy tickets, you storm back from 3-0 down only to allow a late third period goal, and you don't even get a point. On Saturday, you get creamed by the Penguins. Sorokin having the worst game of his career. Brian Rust with the hat trick. The Islanders were down 5-0 at one point. Now look, can you blame the Islanders for taking a step back because their first line left winger and their captain tore his ACL? No. It's perfectly reasonable. It's not the kind of thing where you start calling for people's heads. But it is a tough pill to swallow since this team had Stanley Cup aspirations. At this very moment, I don't see it. Without Lee and no reinforcements coming in, it's hard to picture how this team can win a Stanley Cup. Well, Jacob, what do you mean by reinforcements? I'm glad you asked. We're 2 weeks away from the NHL trade deadline. And we've already seen some moves. Eric Stahl is now a Canadian. And Brendan Lemieux is now a King. So it's time for Lamoriello to start sniffing around. He doesn't need to do it now. The Islanders are basically locked into a playoff spot. They're well in front of the Bruins. They're well in front of the Flyers. They're well in front of the Rangers. The Islanders are making the playoffs. But then what? Are you okay with just letting the chips fall where they may? I'm not. I just saw this team make the Eastern Conference Finals. You can't tell me that a Stanley Cup run is impossible. Well, without Lee it is. I'm not so sure. There are some pretty appealing names that have been mentioned in the NHL rumor mill. Well, who exactly? I'm glad you asked. Arthur Staple of The Athletic solicited trade proposals from Islanders fans. He then took some of them to 2 NHL front office executives. And this is on theathletic.com. It's well worth the read. It's a very interesting article. I want to take you through this article. And we'll find out together who the Islanders can get and who they can't get. The first trades mentioned involve Philip Forsberg. We don't really know if Forsberg is available or not. The Predators are in the playoff hunt. But let's be honest, if they get there, they're not going to make a lot of noise. They're going to get creamed by the Lightning. If the Blackhawks get in that 4 seed, they're going to get creamed by the Lightning. The Blue Jackets are going to get creamed by the Lightning. The Stars are going to get creamed by the Lightning. Whoever ends up as the 4 seed in the Central Division is going to get creamed by the Lightning. It's not crazy to speculate that Forsberg could be traded. And Forsberg would help the Islanders a lot. He has 29 points in 34 games this year. You put him on the first line with Barzal and Eberle, you're set. Very disciplined player. Doesn't take a lot of penalties. he's one of the few Predators that are actually scoring. Unfortunately, all the trades mentioned in this article that net the Islanders Forsberg basically got shot down. The only one that didn't involved the Islanders trading Beauvillier, Grant Hutton, Mitch Van de Sampo, and the Islanders' first rounder in this coming draft. The Islanders would also get the Predators' second rounder in 2022. The executive didn't shoot down that trade outright. He just said, and I quote, "Beauvillier is a very good player. He is. He's just not having the greatest year this year." Then again, no one on that second line is. Nelson and Bailey are disappointing a little bit. I'll be honest with you. Beauvillier's looking at a big number, north of 5 coming off this deal. If the Predators are going to trade Forsberg, they're getting 3 to 4 good young future pieces they can start over with. And I'll say this, I don't like the idea of trading Beauvillier in a 1-for-1 deal. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yes, you're addressing the first line, but you just opened up a huge hole on that second line. You solved one issue by creating another issue. That doesn't work. The next guy up was Kyle Palmieri. It's very easy to make that connection. Obviously, Lamoriello was with the Devils for a million years. And Palmieri has had some really good years for the Devils. This year, he's taken a little bit of a step back. 15 points in 31 games. But still, you can put Palmieri in your top 6, and you'll be fine. I don't like him on the first line. That's not going to work. For starters, Palmieri is a right winger. So what you'd have to do is either move Beauvillier up to the first line or Bailey up to the first line. I'm okay with that. I'll say it right now. I have no problem with that. It's a creative way of fixing the hole at first line left wing. The two trades that didn't get shot down by the other executive were the Islanders' 2 second-rounders in this year and next year, along with Leo Komarov going to the Devils, and the Islanders' first-rounder this year going to the Devils. In regards to the Komarov deal, the executive says it makes sense. You're barking up the right tree, but it's probably not gonna win you the Palmieri sweepstakes. He thinks that another team will make a better offer. So then you move on to the first rounder. The executive says that's probably the most value for the Devils. Basically, it comes down to this. Are you willing to give up a first rounder for a rental who you're probably not going to bring back in Kyle Palmieri? Komarov in the 2 seconds, I do in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even give a second thought about it. The first is tough. I would need to think about it. I'd probably say yes, but I can see the danger signs in my head. Danger, danger, Mike Milbury. Danger, danger, Ryan Smith. It's a little different. The Milbury teams were never this good. They never got as close to the Stanley Cup as the Islanders did last year. If you're a win-now team, I don't begrudge you for making this type of a move. You've got to be smart about it. It's not like you can give up a first-rounder, Bodie Wild, Kiefer Bellows, and Mitch Van de Sample for Palmieri. No, that's ridiculous. But just a first-rounder for Palmieri? I can live with that. And yeah, it's gonna stink to see Palmieri sign somewhere else, like Ryan Smith did. But you know that going into this. You know that the Islanders aren't gonna have the cap room necessary to bring back Palmieri. They are in cap hell right now. They don't have a lot of cap space entering next year, and they've got to re-sign guys like Beauvillier, Pelech, and Sorokin. If you didn't like the Devon Taves trade, you're going to hate the trades that Lamoriello's going to have to make to put a good team out there next year. So while I understand the concern of giving up a first for Palmieri, I'd probably do it. The article then mentions Taylor Hall, a guy who the Islanders have been linked to seemingly since the beginning of time. I mean, a lot of people said that Hall could sign with the Islanders. He ended up signing with a New York team. He just went a little further north. He went to the Sabres and has had a dreadful season. Only 2 goals in 33 games. He only has 17 points. I mean, everyone on the Sabres is struggling. But still, it's noteworthy. But Hall is probably the best player that's going to get moved at this deadline. I'd be really surprised if he stayed with the Sabres. I understand that he has a no-trade clause, but you gotta think he'd be willing to waive it. The guy expected to contend. He's not gonna do that in Buffalo. I do think he's gonna be traded. Now, there are a few trades that, according to the first executive, get Hall to the Islanders. A prospect and a second, or a first. Interestingly enough, though, the prospects that Brooke and Hillel mentioned, Kiefer Bellows and Bodie Wild, aren't highly regarded by this executive. I mean, Islanders fans do this a lot. Granted, all fan bases do, but I feel like the Islander fans just take it to another degree. They hype up these prospects like they're guaranteed to be great. Bellows has had a disappointing year. And let's be honest, you don't know anything about Bodie Wild, okay? Do I know anything about Bodie Wild? Not much. I know he's a defenseman. I know he has 2 assists in 9 games for the Sound Tigers. Last year in 20 games for the Sound Tigers, he also had 2 assists. I'm not saying he's not going to work out in the NHL. But let's be honest. You've never seen Bodie Wild play, and you're hyping him up like he's going to be the next Dennis Potvin. What's also noteworthy is the Islanders don't have a good farm system. Matthew Zader of the HockeyWriters.com ranked the NHL's best farm systems 2 months ago. The Islanders were second to last. The only team in front of them was the Penguins. Now that's the price you pay with a guy like Noah Dobson graduating, Sorokin too, and they didn't have a first and second rounder. But it's interesting, these prospects that you're talking about giving up are the best of a bad farm system. And I haven't seen any legitimate articles saying that any of the Islanders' prospects are top 100 guys. You want to tell me Oliver Wahlstrom is? First up, he's not a prospect anymore. Secondly, you're not trading Wahlstrom, so get that out of your head. Bellows isn't. Koivula isn't. Wild isn't. Maybe to some people Simon Holmstrom is. But do you want to give up Holmstrom? I'm not crazy about that. I'm not saying he's untouchable, but I prefer not to trade him. So the trades for Hall that include a prospect and a second don't get the job done. If you give up a first rounder, that gets it done. A first rounder for Taylor Hall works, according to this executive. If you try to attach Leo Komarov to him, it doesn't work. The executive said that he doesn't think anyone is going to take on Komarov's contract. He said the same thing about Andrew Ladd also, for whatever it's worth. So I'll tell you right now, I would do Hall for a first. I prefer Hall to Palmieri, no question about that. I'd go all in on moving him south down the thruway. The article does go on to mention other players. I don't want to go through them all. This article is worth a read. And look, I'm not sponsored by The Athletic. I'm not an Athletic employee. Do I pay for it? The answer is yes. But I really don't want to spoil the rest of the article for you. I wanted to go through the 3 biggest names. The one thing I'll say, though, is an issue that the Islanders have had for a long time is third line left wing. And I've spoken about it before. Forsberg, Palmieri, and Hall don't address that. But there was a guy mentioned further down in the article that does. John V. proposed that the Islanders trade their third rounder this year to the Red Wings for Bobby Ryan. Yes. Bobby Ryan makes perfect sense. The guy has 14 points in 32 games, has been in the NHL for 14 years. Once upon a time, he was one of the best players in the game. I love the idea of a Ryan, Pajot, Wahlstrom line. However, the first executive said that Steve Yzerman is going to get at least a second and a prospect. I'll tell you right now, I would trade a second rounder and Bodie Wild for Bobby Ryan. It's time to damn the torpedoes and go full speed ahead. It's been too long for this team to have not won. Bobby Ryan fills a hole that they've had all year. Some people may consider a second and Bodie Wild an overpay. Maybe it is, but if that's the market, you gotta do it. I thought Andy Green for a second was an overpay. The Islanders kinda had to do it. Adam Pelech was hurt. We had no idea that the pause was coming. The Islanders had a hole to fill. They were beholden to market value, and they overpaid. That happens. It's the same thing here. A second and Bodie Wild for Bobby Ryan. You gotta do it. Again, it is worth your time to read this whole article. Job well done by Arthur Staple. The next Islanders show that you're gonna get is April 12th. That's gonna come after the trade deadline. I'm gonna give my grade on what the Islanders do. I did it last year. It was a lot of fun. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that it really bothers me to think that I may never throw a home run pitch again.